This Great Tusk Mill deck will infuriate your opponents and get you easy dubs. The concept behind this deck is pretty simple. We want to establish our Great Tusks and then use an Ancient Supporter to allow our Land Collapse attack to discard the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck. And while we're milling, we're able to stall with Gravity Gemstones and Counter Catchers to trap our opponent's non-attacking Pokemon up in the active. And say you're playing against Dragapult or Zard and they have everything set up, a devolution will make them ever regret playing a Stage 2 deck. And then the kicker, a late game neutralization zone if you're playing against EX or V decks can be gain if they don't have a way to knock that stadium. While I do think Great Tusk fared a little bit better in the meta about a month ago, I believe that Great Tusk will be one of those decks that will just randomly be super powerful whenever the meta gets going too fast. For instance, I think the meta is shifting back to a slightly more turbo-focused meta, and Great Tusk does incredible against turbo decks as long as they're not able to knock you out without any benched Pokemon. Alright, let's get to the list. This is my personal list that I've been tweaking and modifying for the last couple of months. I've been playing with it, and it's been doing really well for me, so let's check it out. We run 4 Great Tusk, 1 Radiant Greninja, 1 Pidgeot V, and 1 Mawile. For supporters, we run 4 Professor Sada's Vitality. We also run 4 Explorer's Guidance, 1 Eerie, and 1 Erica's Invitation. For items, we run 4 Counter Catcher, 4 Pokegear 3.0s, 4 Nest Balls, 3 Earthen Vessels, 2 Palpad, 2 Super Rod, 2 Accompanying Flute, and 1 Hisuian Heavy Ball. For stadiums, we run 1 Neutralization Zone and 3 Artisan. For tools, we run 3 Gravity Gemstones, 1 Technical Machine Devolution, and 1 Handheld Fan. For energy, we run 6 Fighting, 4 Double Turbos, and 2 Jet Energies. So my biggest maybe about this deck is potentially adding in a Tatsugiri and a Rescue Board. Now obviously I don't find it important enough to include in my list, but if you find yourself struggling to find those supporters every turn, a Tatsu and a Rescue Board can come in clutch. Now the only other ace spec that I would consider playing is the Prime Catcher. This would allow you to target down their high retreat Pokemon and potentially get one of your high retreat Pokemon out of the active. But I just don't think it's worth it to knock the Neutralization Zone, given how strong Neutralization Zone can be if you play it correctly. The zone works so well in this deck because you run so many other stadiums, so they're going to be trying to knock out your Artisans consistently using up their stadiums, and then ideally by the end of the game you put down the zone and they just can't remove it. I did see somebody running a Dangerous Laser in their Great Tusk Mill deck. I personally don't think this is worth it, but I could see the merit in confusing your opponent's Pokemon, but still, I'm not sure if the Neutralization Zone is just so much better. Now the only other real Pokemon I would consider adding to this list other than Tatsu would be Mimikyu. I do think this could be a decent inclusion, I just don't really think it's worth it to remove a different, more valuable card. Now, the only other supporter I would consider is Xerosic's Machinations. Since we don't really have any hand disruption like an Iono or a Judge, a Xerosic's late game to make your opponent discard their hand down to 3 cards can really mess up your opponent's game plan. I would probably either run the Eerie or the Xerosic's, not both. And the last card that I would consider adding in is a Calamitous Wasteland. As long as your opponent's active isn't fighting, the Calamitous plus the Gravity Gemstone will make your opponent's active Pokemon retreat cost 2 more. I'm not sure the Wasteland is fully worth it considering how valuable our Artisans and obviously our Neutralization Zone are to us, but it could be a really fun inclusion, especially if you are leaning more into the trapping and stalling aspect of the Great Tusk Mill deck. On to gameplay tips. The game plan for this deck is actually pretty simple. We're trying to go second, we're trying to get a land collapse off first turn, and we are trying to just start milling them immediately. With how many Pokegears and just all 8 Ancient Supporters in our deck, there's a decent chance you will have access to an Ancient Supporter turn 1, so if you have the opportunity, always go second. If you have an Artisan and a Nest Ball, always Artisan for your Great Tusk and Nest Ball for your Radiant Greninja to start getting energies into your discard pile and give you just more cards in your hand. Greninja is our only real draw power, just in case your opponent plays like a Judge. But the nice thing about this deck is we're never attacking, so even if they Iono us, we're still just getting 6 cards back. Now if your opponent hasn't taken any prize cards yet, and you have an injured Great Tusk up in the active and a healthy one on the bench, sometimes it's worth it to just leave the injured one into the active, try to get them to take a prize card, to now allow you to start using your counter catchers. Now we have the tendency to absolutely fly through our decks, given Explorer's Guidance allows you to look through 6 cards and Professor Sada just gets you 3 cards. So we need to make sure we do not discard our Pidgeot V if we don't have a Super Rod to bring it back. I use Pidgeot V at the end of games pretty consistently if I'm not able to start milling quickly, or if I just fly through my deck. Couple solid matchups for us are Snorlax Stall, Regidrago, Iron Thorns, pretty much any turbo deck, so that includes Miraidon, Turbo Moon, Raging Bolt, etc., all of that stuff, and essentially any deck that has very, very important cards that we could potentially mill. However, it is up to the gods of luck as to if we actually mill the correct card. Couple matchups that are tough for us are going to be Dragapult and Zard, but a well-timed devolution can make your chances go way up, and pretty much any deck that has lots of switches or abilities to get their active Pokemon out of the active. However, if they bench too many non-attackers, we can eventually burn through all of their switch cards, jet energies, whatever, and they're still just screwed. As I mentioned before, I don't think Great Tusk is a great meta play right now, but I do think it can get really, really good at any point in time if Pokemon decks start flying through their decks again. If a lot of decks rely on a lot of draw power, a natural counter to that is to mill those cards. And if they keep drawing cards to make their deck work, they're really only helping us mill. I love Great Tusk. I've always been fascinated with stall and mill decks, and yeah, it may be because I'm a very cynical person and I enjoy watching my opponents suffer, but hey, this isn't a therapy session, it's a Pokemon video. Hope you enjoyed this little deck profile, and I should have another little deck breakdown coming out soon. I'm going to leave a little puzzle here to let you guess what it is. Let me know in the comments if you got it. And thank you so much for watching. You really didn't have to do that, so I appreciate the absolute hell out of you. If you want to continue to support, give me a like, give me a subscribe, let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. And I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day.